Peace.
Okay. Peace, God. How you?
Good, God. Introduce yourself, God.
Saladin. That's Saladin Allah. My middle name is Quinaya. Yeah. Okay. So, but I just go by Saladin.
That's the middle name as far as like that's your righteous middle name.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it means ego. It's an indigenous name.
Ego.
Ego, as in like like an
ego,
yeah, not ego, not edging God out ego. I'm talking about like a bird of prey. Like
eagle.
Yeah.
Eagle. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I said ego. Like okay.
Yeah. It also means fragrant too.
Okay.
So it's actually a name after Quanah Parker, who was the last Quahati chief or Comanche chief. So I have 2 million ancestry. So I wanted to choose a name that honored that particular part of my lineage as well. Yeah.
Right.
But I typically just go by Saladin.
Saladin Allah. Right?
Yeah.
Usually, so because that here's a question. I know brothers ask about the Q in the name. How did you see that? And I know you probably came across some of those things.
Yeah.
Brothers trying to say Q stands for Queen or all this.
Yeah. Well, if a person's perspective is they're drawing up my name Quinaya from the supreme alphabet, then that may be their perspective. But when I explain to them that's a part of my ancestry, that's an indigenous name that represents the 2 million, then people have a little bit more of an understanding when I share that particular part of it.
Right. Right. Okay. So where exactly you from? You from here or?
I'm from Niagara Falls, New York.
You born?
Yeah.
Niagara Falls, New York.
I was born there.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did knowledge get to you?
Man, I got knowledge when I was in college. So I went to college in Ohio. I went to Central State University. It's a historically black college and university. Prior to that, though, I was exposed to the 5% just through hip hop. You know what I mean? And during that golden era. And I really didn't know what the culture was. I had a lot of misconceptions about it because it was only coming from the perspective of a rap artist, so you really didn't get a chance to see all of the different people activities that go along with the culture.
Right.
So I was getting bits and pieces and fragments just like everybody else was, but it was enough to get me more interested in what it actually was. So when I was in high school, there was a group of brothers that I grew up with, and this is when we got exposed to Islam, just generally speaking, because when you go
like
back to that golden era,
was it Orthodox Islam or Nation Islam?
No, like Nation of Islam.
Okay.
Because going back to that golden era,
right.
It was all of those different influences in the music. So it was probably about 24 of us in high school at the time, and this goes back to like Build. You know what I mean? And half of the brothers went and actually joined the Nation of Islam. And when they joined the Nation of Islam, they would bring books and we would all study together. So this is in high school. They would be bringing us Message to the Black Man, Theology of Time, How to Eat to Live, Book 1 and Book 2, and all of these other different resources from the nation. And the other half of us never wanted to join the Nation of Islam, even though we appreciated the teachings. We were more unique, and we didn't feel comfortable cutting our hair, looking a certain way, wearing a suit. We weren't comfortable with that, you know what I mean? But we appreciated the teachings. Right. We would watch videos, and then one thing we used to do is we used to be breaking each other down. So we would study things and be striving to show and prove it to one another. We didn't really know what we was doing, but we knew that knowledge was important. And this was something that we were invested in that early. And at one point, one of my brothers that was in the nation, he told me about who the 5% is.
Did he tell you as per the degree, or told you as per the nation of the 5%?
He told me as per some of the artists that were rappers that he was aware of, because he had the Supreme Wisdom book. So these brothers that went and joined the nation, they would share with us different books, but they would never share with us their Supreme Wisdom book. You know what I'm saying? And I always wanted to learn about it, but they would be like, "Nah, you got to be a registered member of the Nation of Islam. You got to do this, that, and the third." And I was just like, "I'm not doing that." So then one of my brothers was like, "Well, those lessons is some of these rappers be putting these lessons in their lyrics," and I'm like, "Who?" And some of them I was already listening to, like Poor Righteous Teachers, Brand Nubian, Rakim, some of these other different artists. And when he told me that, it made me go back and listen twice as hard than what I was listening to the first time. And I would start hearing things now that I really didn't hear before. And that set me on a trajectory to really want to learn more about who the 5% was, because I'm like, yo, that resonates more with me because they're original. They not out here and wearing a suit and cutting their hair and looking a certain way and being a follower and living in this hierarchy structure that's religious, and they're not doing all of that, but they also have access to the lessons. So I was like, that's the way that I want to learn it. But growing up in my area, the only brothers that you would necessarily come in contact with that had knowledge of self might have been from the city, because Niagara Falls is western now. Why? And if they were from the city, usually they came from the belly of the beast, and they might have been incarcerated upstate where we're at, and then once they got out, they might have settled in the area. So you might have gotten access to it in that capacity, but other than that, there wouldn't be people walking around and stuff saying they're the 5%. There wasn't people that were living a lot of cultures in the city where I was at. Even though Niagara Falls is an international city, you got people that come from around the world all of the time. In terms of having a sense of nationalism and consciousness and stuff, there may have not been a lot of that. So when I graduated high school, I got recruited to play football. So I was promised a scholarship at Central State University. So I left early to report to football camp. When I got there, I played my first year and I stopped playing. I just lost interest in sports, right? Now, all of this time, from high school all the way going up through college, and even when I look back further, I was always a person that was studious. I always was a person that read. My old Earth, she's a social psychologist, so we had a DSM-4 in the household, where that was some of the language that was used in my household growing up in terms of different diagnoses that people fall under when it comes to mental illness and stuff. That was common language in my household, right? My old dad, he was more culturally conscious, so he collected African artifacts. So I was exposed to a lot of our classical indigenous civilization before I got exposed to that in other capacities. So I had more of a socially cultural background growing up in terms of my family dynamics. When I got to college, after my first year, I was still like studying and researching different things, you know, but I didn't really claim or define myself as anything, you know. And it was there that I met my educator, my enlightener. And
his name is
Raheem Shabazz.
Raheem Shabazz.
Yeah. And he's from North Philly. Right? And when I met him, the first time that I came in contact with him, we had a area on our campus called the Breezeway. And people be out there hanging out, you know what I'm saying, stuff like that. And sometimes I'd be out there hanging out, but I wouldn't necessarily be like socializing and stuff like that, because I was a part of the football team. That was most of my peer group. And if I wasn't with them, I'd kind of just be by myself or whatever. So I was sitting out there one day reading a book, and this brother walked by, looked and saw what I was reading, looked up at me, and just kept walking. And I was like, that's kind of strange. So later on, I went to where our administration building is, because buses would pick you up from there to take you into town, because my college is in Wilberforce, Ohio. And it's kind of like a rural part of Ohio, outside of a small little city called Xenia, as well as Yellow Springs, where Dave Chappelle grew up at. Okay. And that's the kind of area it was. So I was waiting on the bus to get ready to go in town, and this gold Altima drives up, and the brother who had walked by earlier was in the passenger seat, and it was another brother that was driving. So they get out of the vehicle and walk up to me, and the brother that saw me earlier walked up to me and started speaking Arabic. Now I didn't know Arabic or nothing like that.
Oh,
and
right.
yeah, like fluent Arabic.
He started speaking fluent Arabic.
Yeah.
And was it Arabic?
No, he's from North Philly.
North Philly.
Had a patch on his eye.
Oh.
Looked straight thug. You know what I'm saying? Like he did not look like he didn't have no beard or nothing like that. So
what did he say, like a prayer or something? Like this?
Nah, he was just
or he was saying like more fluent into the
trying
language.
to talk to me in Arabic. You know what I'm saying? And it didn't match because you wouldn't think that this brother knew Arabic just based on appearance if you was assuming. Right? And I was like, I don't speak Arabic. So he was asking me more questions. Are you Muslim and everything else? I was like, nah, I'm not. You know? So I was kind of like, I didn't know what was going on. You know? So he was interrogating me a little bit. And then he started laughing and rolled up his sleeve, and he had a universal flag tattoo on his arm. So I was like, yo, so you're a 5%er, right? And he's like, true indeed. And I was like, yo, I want to learn. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It wasn't sometimes people can be haughty. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And don't want to be genuine and honest and upfront about what it is that they say that they want. You know what I mean? I instantly was like, yo, I want to learn. Right? So he was like, okay, meet me by the cafeteria tomorrow. Right? So I was like, what time? He's like, noon. So I couldn't sleep that night. You know what I'm saying?
You got excited.
Yeah. I was like, oh yeah, I'm about to learn. You know what I mean? So I get up early in the morning and I'm like, I'm gonna get there at 11. Walking out of my dorms and I'm approaching, he already there. I meet him and I'm like, okay, so can I learn now? He's like, yo, come with me for a minute. And walk me over to the library. So we go to the library and he's not doing much talking. Just walk me over to the library. And once we get in the library, we go upstairs and he walks through a few aisles and he pulls out a couple different books. One of the books he pulls out is a book on quantum physics. Right? The other book he pulls out is a book by Friedrich Nietzsche about the philosophy of nihilism. You know what I'm saying?
So he's going to see this. This sounds high science, bro. Right?
Yeah, right. Just straight high science. So I'm
for a newborn.
Yeah,
right.
You know what I mean. So he take the books. We go sit at the table, and we start looking through the books, and he starts explaining to me what cosmology is and triple stage darkness. So he takes me there. Not no conversation about mathematics, alphabet, lessons, the father. No.
Quantum
science. You know what I'm saying? So I'm sitting there in the back of my mind, I'm like, I wanted to learn lessons and stuff, like, and we building about this. We were there for hours, and he's building with me about this stuff. And when we concluded, I was kind of discouraged because I had unreasonable expectations about what this was.
Right.
You know what I mean? He walks me back over to my dorm, and we had a payphone in the middle of the hallway. So he said, hold on for a second. And he goes over to the payphone. He makes a phone call, talks for a few minutes. And he was like, yo, come here for a minute. And goes and puts me on the phone. And it's his enlightener, Life Justice. He puts me on the phone. And Life Justice just goes 0 to 60. He just like, peace. I heard that, you striving to study and stuff like that. The God wanted me to build with you about triple stage darkness, this, that, and the third, blah, blah, blah. And he just started going in.
Right.
Building about it. Like, I don't even think he took a breath. You know what I'm saying? And I'm listening to it, and it sounds like a different language to me. I don't even know what questions to ask.
Right, because it's hard to get some, you don't know about this.
Yeah,
right.
To get some understanding. I'm just listening like, And as I'm listening, I can feel myself shrinking. Smaller and smaller and get more and more discouraged.
He's above your head.
Yeah, get more discouraged. And I get off the phone and I feel like crying. I was that discouraged. And part of it was because I had unreasonable expectations about what this was.
Well, what was your expectations?
Right? To learn lessons, and I didn't even know really what that meant.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And
you want to speak like the rappers spoke, kind of.
I don't even know if, I would say that that was I knew that they had something, but I didn't know what it was.
Right, okay.
You know what I'm saying? It was something, but I didn't know what it was. So I get off the phone. I walk back down the hallway to my dorm. I go in my room, and he pulls me aside for a second. He was like, yo, look at me for a second. So we just stand there looking at each other eye to eye for about 2 minutes without looking away, just straight eye to eye, right? And as we're looking at each other that long eye to eye, he says, I know that you're sincere now, that you're not in this for any other reason but to actually learn. So I'm going to teach you further. Because I wasn't looking around and all this other stuff. You know what I'm saying? He was like, this is one of the first things he taught me. He said that you can see where the devil is manufactured by looking a man in his eyes. You know what I'm saying? Always look a man in their eyes. And that's the first thing that he taught me, and it encouraged me too. You know what I'm saying?
That moment just encouraged you. So you went from being this, so you started growing a little bit more like...
Yeah, because he also talked to me just about some of the expectations in terms of learning. You know what I'm saying? That this was... He showed me then and there that this is about brotherhood, and this is a relationship that you're establishing with somebody. This isn't something that you asking for that somebody's just going to hand you. It's not an object. This is a relationship. And from that day forward, we continued our journey. So we walked together, and I learned 1 degree at a time. So it wasn't like he handed me a piece of paper and said, learn this lesson, and I'm sitting in my room looking up at the ceiling trying to memorize something. We walked together every day. Now peep this. He was on the campus, but he wasn't even registered that semester. He was still going to classes and wasn't even registered. And I'm talking about difficult classes like physics classes, sociology classes. That is how dedicated he was and studious he was about learning. He was also studying to be a master chess player. So he would carry around a Ziploc bag with chess pieces in it and a folded up cloth chessboard, because he would study that every day and study people like Gary Kasparov and Bobby Fischer. And so he was a studious person, you know what I mean? And we invested a lot of time together. We walked together a lot. And
somebody that was like yourself, the studious. So, so y'all kind of were, alike in that sense.
Yes. You know, and sometimes he stayed off campus in a condo, right? Him and his earth at the time, her name was Red Asia. And 'cause she had red hair, she's from Chicago. So I would stay at their spot sometimes, get off campus for a minute, but I learned all of my degrees in context because I was always studying. I didn't get mathematics on a piece of paper.
Got it by way of
learning and walking and talking with them. I didn't get alphabet like that. My supreme alphabet came from just walking and talking with them. It wasn't until later on that I literally wrote the math and the alphabet down. So I didn't get a piece of paper with a basic breakdown of the mathematics and the alphabet. I had to learn that in real time. You know what I'm saying? And the reason is because his educator, Life Justice, began to teach that way, because when he got knowledge in God power during that era, one of the things that he began to see is people using our language but not having a foundation in the principles and values that you learn within 120. And because of that, he saw a lot of people being on some five pretender shit. So what he said is, I'm not just going to go out here giving people my language and they don't know the principles and the values behind the words. So he started instituting that in terms of my family tree, where you're going to learn about creation, you're going to learn your degrees, and through the process, you're going to learn how to speak the language of the principles and the values that you're learning. You know what I'm saying? That's the exact same way that I teach as well.
Inf Mega did this.